Charles Lindbergh's Spirit of St. Louis, the different Apollo spacecrafts, the Museum of Natural History, so that's the butterfly exhibit, woolly mammoth,
Hope Diamond.
the Hope Diamond, thank you. I drew a blank there for a second. Dinosaurs. The Museum of American History. So we've got the actual flag that the Star Spangled Banner was written about, that Francis Scott Key was writing about. Some of the different parts of American pop culture. You see Oscar the Grouch, Kermit the Frog, Dorothy's Slippers from The Wizard of Oz. Those are the lunch counters from the sit-ins during the Civil Rights Movement. Dumbo, C-3PO. This is just kind of neat stuff for kids to see. Other Smithsonian museums, depending on the amount of time we have. We've gone, Mrs. Zimmerman and our teachers taking kids to the museum, the National Gallery of Art. I've hit the Museum of Native Americans, the National Museum of the American Indian. There's now an African American Smithsonian that I haven't been to. I don't know that if that'll be there for African American history, if that'll be on our itinerary or not. But it's definitely on the radar. The Air Force Memorial and dinner. Again, this was a pizza restaurant in Chicago that they loved, so that was dinner that night. We see some of the monuments at night, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, the Marine Corps Memorial. This is always kind of neat. The one year we were there, and the Marine Corps band was actually rehearsing, which was super, super cool thing to see. And then back to the hotel. They always want to know when they can have hotel time and when they can swim. The answer is night 2, not night 1. Night 1, we're on the go the whole time. Night 2, they get some time to enjoy the hotel. Sometimes there's a game room. I don't know if there will be this time. There's always a pool. I always request that. We take them down in shifts because you usually can't fit 100 kids in the pool at once, or there's not anywhere to swim. So we take them down in shifts. And the only rule the second night is, now this is the night that they will stay up, and this is the night that they'll play cards in their room or do things on their phone or do things like that. The rule is that they have to pack their luggage that night. Because when they come down Monday morning, they are not going back to the hotel. They are putting their luggage on the bus when we leave. So we'll have breakfast, luggage goes on the bus, and then it's bye-bye hotel. Now, fortunately, we do have an on-site coordinator. I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, we had a girl leave a pair of sneakers at the hotel. He mailed them to us. All right, so we've got help there if something like that happens. I usually don't tell the kids that because I don't want them to think they have that safety net. But that's part of some of the services you pay for doing this. So that's a picture of the pool. Day 3, Monday, our last day. We have breakfast there the last day, guaranteed. They put out a nice buffet for us. The World War II Memorial. Like I said, if you were 18 on D-Day, you're 94 now. So there's not as many left. They're fading. So hopefully we'll get a chance this year. This is one of my favorite pictures from last year. This was a veteran that they go up and they say thank you. And you can see the smile on this guy's face. They made his day. It was a powerful, powerful moment. It's probably one of the favorite pictures I've ever taken in Washington. Okay, so they'll have an opportunity for that, I hope, depending on... Mr. Howard, there was a whole contingent there the day we were there, right? There was like a reunion or something. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a reunion and everybody, all of our kids stood on the top looking down and applauded.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
It was super cool. The White House for a picture stop. We don't go in the White House. All right? I did it once and it ate up a whole day. And it's neat, but there's so much more to see. So we do kind of like a drive-by. We get them outside and they take a picture individually or as a group. That's our group photo in front of the Capitol building. We'll stop and pose for that. United States Memorial Holocaust Museum. This stop has a huge impact on our 8th grade students. One of the things that we do in 8th grade is an interdisciplinary unit on the Holocaust between ELA and social studies. And the kids, the 7th graders get something out of it too. I don't want to say that they don't, but if your child's a 7th grader right now, I can guarantee that this is going to impact them because I will have taught it to them probably. And Mrs. Bruno will have taught it, and Mr. Sweeney will have taught it. And so when they go through the Holocaust Museum, the way the museum works is that you start at the top on the 4th floor, you come in, and you're greeted by a docent. They line you up, girls and boys on one side, down these row of stairs. And the docent will talk to you a little bit about your knowledge base, and our kids usually have a pretty good one. You get into an elevator, and the elevator gets very dark, and it takes you up to the top floor. When you get up to the top floor, one of the first things you see is what the American soldiers found when they liberated the camps. And you see some of the photos. And then you kind of make your way through, and it starts with Adolf Hitler's rise to power in Nazi Germany. And that's the 4th floor. And then you go down to the 3rd floor, and that's where the persecution starts. And Jews and other undesirables are moved to ghettos. And then you go down to the 2nd floor, and that's the extermination camps. And then you come down to the final floor, and that's when there's a place where you can light a candle, say a prayer if that's something that you want to do, pause and think, and that's sometimes where you'll see survivors. So it's a pretty powerful thing. Those are some of the different floors. You walk through one of the railroad cars, see the gate at Auschwitz, the room with the shoes, which if you've been there, you've heard about it. Those were discovered at one of the warehouses after the war. And that was one of the survivors who spoke to us one year. She was a sweetheart. Then lunch, again, a food court, Reagan International. The National Cathedral, we did not go last year, but it's a pretty awesome building. It's the 2nd largest cathedral in North America, I think, behind St. Anne's, or maybe it's the 1st. St. Anne's is in Quebec. It's the 1st or the 2nd. Just architecturally, religious or not, it's a powerful building. There's a moon rock up in the one stained glass window that the kids always want to take a picture of. And then the zoo. It's usually one of our last stops. They always want to see the pandas. They think they're going to look like that, but they usually look like that. But they do get to see them. I like this photo. This is Gigi. I think she's a senior. A bird flew over and did his business on her. And usually if that happens to a middle school girl, oh my God, it's the end of the world. But the look on her face was just like, this is the trip. This is what the kind of fun she's having. Then we have dinner, usually at Arundel Mills Mall on the way to the airport. We say goodbye to our driver, and we take a plane back to Buffalo, and a charter bus home. That's the final ride. That's usually what they look like when you pick them up. Okay, so they're pretty big. And we usually arrive back here anywhere between 9 and 11. There have been years our flight's been delayed. That's no fun at the airport with 100 kids waiting to come home. But it can happen. I mean, it's part of the trip. It can happen. So some of the educational pieces of this, we talk about career college readiness, that kind of stuff. What I've seen this trip do is sharpen children's awareness. It enhances their perspective on the world outside of Lewiston-Porter. It fosters independence. Like I said, it's their first time away for a lot of them. It strengthens their leadership skills. You see this happen in hotel rooms. It's hysterical. 4 kids in a room, and they got to figure out who's showering when, and somebody kind of takes charge politely, and they figure it out. It demonstrates courage to go away from home, and it teaches adaptability and problem solving along the way. I forgot a raincoat, or I forgot it because it happens all the time. They lose stuff. I won't lose your kids, but they'll lose stuff. That'll happen, I'll guarantee that. They learn to take on different roles and responsibilities, and I always put that kind of in there at the end. As a social studies teacher, that's something that's important to me, but it's a quote from Mark Twain. For a lot of them, it's the first time they travel. They get to see a world outside of Lewiston-Porter, and it really does open up their mind. I promised Mr. Auer I would let him say a few words, just a few. You won't be long-winded. I won't let you, because these people have places to go. But he experienced the trip for the first time last year, so I don't know if you got anything to add.
I would just say this, that, obviously having been on trips myself as a student, but also as a high school, taking bus trips versus a plane trip, there is no question, because I had the opportunity to go not only as a principal of your children, but also as a father. It made me extremely comfortable to see how this was run. The trip was, from the time we walked into from this building into the buses, the people were there, they absolutely made sure that everything was taken care of. The second thing I would say is this: to watch our students respond in the way that they did, unprovoked, unscripted, to the memorials and the different places that we went was extremely prideful. You watch kids who, geez, I don't know how they're going to handle that, and they absolutely rise to the occasion. I mentioned the World War II memorial, and those kids did that on their own. There was nobody around to say to them, the chaperones weren't there to say, hey, you should go thank them. They came to me and said, Mr. R, can we go thank them? And I said, you absolutely can. And then the third thing that I would say is really the fact that Mr. Bollinger hit home with, and that is that the fact that this company puts people that you would want to work with your kids in place with them. Our tour guide's name was Bill. He was, I know Abe, you guys had Abe, and he went from bus driver to tour guide. I will tell you that he had these kids eating out of his hand. When we pulled up, because we dropped them off at his apartment at the end of the evening, each of those evenings, when they were chanting his name as he's coming out of his apartment, and it's just one of those things that as a parent, as an educator, as someone who wants to see kids grow in that manner, that was something that really took home for me. So it really is, and if you have any other questions, certainly Mike can answer.
Yeah, so I'll open you up for questions if you have any. I try to be pretty thorough. Go ahead.
3 brief ones.
Yeah.
Have your planes ever been overbooked, and what's the contingency plan?
They never have. Sometimes we take over entire planes, but they've never been overbooked. Our tickets are bought usually in advance, so that's never happened to us.
My son talked to a couple other schoolmates, 2 or 3. They kind of wanted to room up. I know you want them to make other friends.
No, that's an excellent question. They pick their own roommates. They'll make friends on the bus and things like that. We want them to pick their own roommates unless there's some kind of crazy situation. I will tell you the most difficult part of the trip for me, though, is sometimes sorting out the drama that occurs, because sometimes you'll think you're rooming with someone and then you're not. So your kids are gonna hear me say over and over and over and over, because they won't hand in a roommate slip until like next January. That's when they're gonna give that to me. And over and over again, I'm gonna say, all 4 of you know this, right? All 4 of you have agreed to this, all right? All 4 of you know you're in the room. Your parents know who you're rooming with. It's good. They're gonna hear it over and over and over again. So whenever possible, they room with who they want. As long as they work it out and the 4 kids agree, there won't be any kind of problem. But sometimes I'll get slips with the same kid's name on 2 slips. I'm like, that's the worst thing for me to see. It's now what am I going to do? Now you got to call them all in, and then somebody's upset, and then then they don't want to go because they can't be with their friend, and mom and dad already paid. So, but we always work it out. We always work it out. But we do get to pick the roommates.
And lastly, did you have any further information on financial aid?
That's an excellent question. In that packet, it's going to talk about what's called the Flag Scholarship, Future Leaders of America, American government, or whatever they call it. That is through the tour company. We have had kids awarded that before. So what you would do is there's an 800 number in there. You call them, and they'll ask you a couple questions and things like that. And we've had it awarded to children before. It's not something that I have really any input on. I think sometimes it's based on income. Sometimes it's based on, I don't know if they base it on grades exactly or things like that. But I would encourage every single family to at least look into it and ask about it, for sure. I know I would. If they're going to give you some money, definitely apply for it. So, you're welcome. Yes?
Are parents allowed to go with chaperones if they pay?
We do not take parents, and the reason for that, a while ago, we had problems during a couple of my trips way back when, where parents were kind of, I had other parents complaining about parents talking to their children. Do you know what I mean? So why is that parent disciplining my kid? Or why is that parent doing this or that? So we chose a while ago, and kind of as part of the middle school experience, to give them some time away from their parents to just eliminate that problem. So that's why we don't do it. Yes?
The real ID in the plane, does recognize?
It does not. If you're under 18 years old, they don't even need identification, like according to the TSA. We will tell them, and we ask them, and we'll make sure they have their school IDs, just because, the TSA guys tend to let you go a little quicker if you have them, but legally they don't even have to have it. I will tell them to bring something, just because I know that seems weird, right? Like you feel like they should have something, but they don't need to if they're under 18 years old. Yes?
How many adults from the school go?
It depends. It's chaperoned on a 15-to-1 basis, so each adult has a group of 15 kids. So if we took 100, 75 and 15 would be 90. 90 would be 6 adults. So I'm betting on 90. That's usually what we end up with, between 90 and 100. So a couple other things. Oh, go ahead.
These kids in these rooms, 4 of them to a room. How do you know if something bad's going on in those rooms?
Well, we've got the guards. We got the guards in the hallway. It's boys with boys and girls with girls, obviously. Have there been incidences where the kids acted up? The answer is yes, and we've had to talk to them. We had a couple years ago, and this is probably one of the most embarrassing things that ever happened to me on the trip, is we had a family who was in a room next to a group of boys, and they had saved up their money for a family vacation, and they were there with a newborn, and the boys were up all night. And come to find out, I found out one of them took an orange and threw it against the wall. And they were just doing stupid middle school boy things that they'll do sometimes. And the next day, I had to call them into the room, and I just basically got their parents on the phone. And one of the things you sign, you're going to get a behavioral contract, and you need to be aware of this, and this usually puts that problem away, is there's a part of that contract that you're going to sign that says if they misbehave and have to be sent home by my decision, because I'm the program director, you got to pay for the plane fare. You'll sign that when you sign the contract. Now, I've never done it, but it's a heck of a threat with you on the phone if they're misbehaving. All right, so they will sign a behavioral contract. So that's kind of how we take care of that. That's the only time I ever had something like that happen. I felt awful for that family. It was embarrassing as a guy running the tour, but it happened. I'm not going to lie to you. You take all these trips with these kids. Kids are young. They're not fully mature yet. And the way you learn that is through experiences like this. Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. Real quick, one thing I just remembered. March 25th is the early bird deadline. Now, don't hold me to this. In the past, they have occasionally extended that. The final deadline to sign up for the trip is not going to be until like June or anything like that. But the early bird is to put a deposit down. If you want to save the money, that's March 25th. But it may be extended. So I want to tell you ahead of time that they might extend it so you don't think that I'm like hiding something from you. I don't know if they're going to, but they have before. They might bump it out to April or something. Thank you. You can sign